Hey guys, it's Joe here with another podcast. Today we have a guest. His name is Mark Bennell. He is a foreign exchange and is it stock trader as well from Melbourne, Australia. So I'm going to hand it over to him and he can introduce himself.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Just a little bit about myself. Some of you may or may not know me. Previous occupation was general manager of a civil engineering company. Came from a engineering background, a mechanical engineering background. Thoroughly enjoyed that, but wanted to make a bit of a change. So I did that quite a while ago. I've been trading for 11 years full time. Now, 3 years prior to that, I was trading part time while I was a general manager. So I thoroughly enjoyed it then, and I still do now.
That's cool. What made you really go from being wanting to be an engineer and into trading, the transition? How did all that come about? Like, what really got you interested in it, and how did you actually discover it in the first place?
Look, Joe, I think they say that the best traders are generally engineers and accountants. Now, that's true to a certain degree. I might add that the best traders are generally accountants and engineers, provided they can work with and overcome their particular mannerisms and personality traits, such as perfectionism. So there you go. But charts, things like charts analysis, those sort of things really appeal to me. So that's a bit of a, having a mind that works with mathematics, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That really works with trading. So from that point of view, yes. So how did I get involved in trading? Well, back before the GFC, about 3 years before the GFC, my father introduced me to his broker. So my father uses his broker for wealth and for income, for generating wealth and for income. So his broker showed me a couple of the things that they were looking at, gave me a couple of tips from there on. I had just a basic platform in those days, just a basic stock platform. So I placed a couple of these trades, and they did exactly what they should. And some news came in and pushed them along, and I thought, this is terrific. This is fantastic. So what I then thought I would do is go and investigate this further myself, as a lot of people do. So I went along to a weekend options workshop. So weekend options, not options over the weekend, but
Yeah.
we learned about options over the weekend. Now, it wasn't cheap, but what it did was give me, number one, an intro into trading, into options trading, but also an introduction into LA principle, which is one of the things that's stuck with me ever since. So I bought the workshop, which was a couple of thousand. I bought the platform, which was another couple of thousand. Launched into it, so just under 5,000, and I'm ready to jump into it. So, of course, with this newfound knowledge, I launched myself into it as hard and fast as I could. Did a bit of basic back testing because I was told that I should. Launched into it. So I launched into the trading equities using my newfound knowledge, and launched into the Australian bull market. Resources were kicking along. So what occurred was I made really good money for the first 3 years part-time. And to me, I thought to myself, wow, this is terrific. Why isn't everybody doing this, Joe? You see?
Yeah.
So, what I didn't realize too was, yes, I had some skills, some basic skills, but really back in those days in an Australian resource bull market, you could have thrown a dart and really made good money anyway. But I did make, I think my third year, I think I made 60% return on my account, which was fantastic.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
So I sort of increased my my capital, and at that point, I thought, look, this is probably, I'm going to make this transition, and some events sort of occurred, and I thought, well, this is the best time to make the break. And I made the break into trading full time 3 months before the GFC hit.
Yeah.
So now there's a difference between earning a income as a general manager. The company was about 35 full-time staff, so it wasn't a small company. Excuse me. And I did enjoy that, but yes, it was a lot of pressure at times. I did enjoy the challenge, but
Yep.
so I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to just ratchet up my capital, just increase my capital so that I can make in comparison what I was making as a general manager. So I don't need to tell you what sort of occurred or the difference in mindset between the two amounts, but not that my capital amount was a small amount. It was considerable. So anyhow, so the GFC hit, and that basically made me realise what I didn't know, and I was just basically ill prepared for that. So, so that was my intro, Joe. So flung myself straight into it hard. Absolutely loved it, yeah, that's then made the transition into full time a little early. But you see, I didn't know what I didn't know. That's a common adage. Back then, I didn't know. I didn't really have any mentors, and you don't know a lot of these things until you're in the midst of it. So, look, as tough as it was, I've got to flip that around and look at the positives as well. Having gone through the GFC, a once-in-a-lifetime thing, that's as much as it was hard. It prepares me for the future as well, because you now know how to deal with that sort of thing. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, that's an awesome story, and it's kind of like the modern day Bitcoin story a couple of years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone threw all their money in Bitcoin. They're having this hype. Everyone's like, "Yeah, sweet, quit my jobs." Bam, taken out. It's like kind of chasing the money without really knowing what you're doing as well. I think is one of those things it comes down to, and it's like I don't know if you've heard of Peter Brandt, but he says the most dangerous thing for a new trader is to win early.
That's right.
I think it's Peter that says it. Pretty sure. But yeah, and it's true. So that was a cool story. I mean, it's like everything in trading. It's a mind game. You have to understand when you go through these. When you lose money, you have to be able to handle it, and you have to be able to handle winning money as well. So yeah. And when you actually went full time, I suppose you really covered a lot of it. But when you went full time and you're properly made a career out of trade and stuff, what struggles did you go through when you were consistently profitable? If you haven't really, I mean, I suppose you did cover a lot of it, but yeah.
Yeah, look, I probably only touched on the surface, scratched the surface of some of those. I think as a self-directed trader, doing it alone, you're going to make the same mistake. You're going to make all of the mistakes, basically. But some of the ones that I had, of course, was I was ill prepared. I was ill prepared for the GFC type market. I was ill prepared to that market type. So that took a bit of a hit, not only to my account, but it took a hit to my psychology. So you can appreciate that. Here's me, I've left my job. Now, I did have the wherewithal to do the 3 years prior, part-time, start to work up. So some of the things that you should do. So to prepare myself for that, I also gave myself a time and a financial buffer, around about 18 months to make a go of this. So if I couldn't do it, then I would have no choice to go back into, the corporate world, some sort of management role, which I didn't want to do. So I didn't want to think about plan B. So I was prepared for that. Then when I realised what I didn't know, then there's this sudden overwhelming feeling that, well, I need to know, and I need to know now. I need to know this stuff quick, smart. So like everybody does, you go through the University of YouTube and a few other things here and there. And I was just overwhelmed by the amount that I felt that I had to learn, but I knew enough to realise that, look, not a lot of this is accurate.
Yeah.
So what I did was went and did I did a couple of 2.5 years of formal study. So I did the education that I did the formal education was, I did the Diploma of Share Trading and Investment here in Australia, I did the Diploma of Technical Analysis, and I also achieved my Certified Financial Technicians accreditation, and I did Elliott Wave courses as well. So there's some of the formal ones. I have done a huge amount of other non-formal, that have been really good as well, and I've done some that have been, wasn't good value for money, and realised the strategies don't work. I was taken in by the marketing hype, all that sort of thing. So what I did was immerse myself into the study side of it, because I thought, like anything, it's I give the analogy of the doctor or the engineer. You're not going to become an engineer or a doctor by looking at YouTube or
No,
reading
that's right.
bits and pieces here, everywhere. So what I tried to do was create the study roadmap, because there was none. So I did that, and I did that well. And look, the question often comes up, do you need that amount of study to be successful? And the answer is no, an unequivocal no. But I did it because that's all I knew. I didn't have a mentor at that stage. I didn't have any sort of roadmap, as I said. I didn't know that. So I did it that way, and I learnt an enormous amount that has really helped me also. So what you have to realise also is then, so I've done all this study, well, I instantly should be, hey, this one should be profitable now. So then I realised that, okay, that's one part of it. And that part of it is giving me the edge. But then, of course, now comes the application of that knowledge. As Bruce Lee says, knowledge is not enough. Learning is not enough. You've now got to apply.
Yep.
So then came applying this. And, of course, now that I've got a structure, I've got a system, or a couple of systems, I've got some great knowledge, I've got some, I've got a huge amount of knowledge. Now it came the task of applying it. So then I hit a few losing trades, you see. So what I couldn't figure out was, well, if I know all this, surely there's a reason why these are losing. So then, of course, what that does is suck you into what I call, and I'm going to quote him here, Alan Hull calls the information prison. It can also be, another analogy is the knowledge quest, where I'm trying to create certainty by learning as much as I could, pulling this pattern apart, pulling this thing apart. Why is it failing? Why is it doing this? Creating unnecessary filters and rules, because I'm trying to create certainty where there is none.
Right,
so, rather than just saying, look, that was just on the wrong side of probability, let it go. I was trying to create this, trying to wrap additional rules and learn a lot more so that I could avoid these, which of course you can't do. So it was only until I realized that, winning over a series of trades, of course. So that was probably one of the major struggles. Now, it was nothing for me to do 12, 13-hour days trading and studying. But the thing is also too, it felt like about 5 or 6 because I love what I was doing. So, for 3 to 4 years, that's what I did. I absolutely immersed myself into it. Now, during that time also, I was able to do an analysis of my own personality, and I realised some of the things that were tripping me up were the classic perfectionism, which also leads hand in hand with not wanting to be wrong. So then that brings up its own set of problems. And one of the biggest ones, of course, was trading with scared money. See, I didn't have any other income coming in. It wasn't like I'd backed off my full-time work and I'd built the other one up. So that in itself made it incredibly hard to push through. So they were some of the major struggles, Joe.
Do you think it also falls back to your engineering background, trying to deconstruct the chart to see where you went wrong?
No, absolutely. It comes down
doesn't help, it's like, if something's not working, all right, why didn't it go wrong? So, you're trying to pull apart when sometimes it's simple as, you follow your rules and you just didn't go right. I mean, just the trade just didn't work out. It happens. And I think as new traders, you don't see that. You think that, well, I know when I started, I was thinking that as a trader, you got to win like 90% of your trades or like 99% of your trades. That's what I thought new traders won. That's what I thought professional traders won. And in reality, most professional traders like around 50, some are 40%, some are 60%. So, that's where I think that was my biggest struggle, is always thinking I had to win a lot with big risk reward ratios, and when I lost, win a little bit but lose almost no trades. That's where I went wrong.
That's right. Look, it does take a while. I think when someone's able to tell you this is what you expect, that makes the task a lot easier. But yeah, look, those similar sort of struggles. I think one of the bigger ones was, as you said before, there's got to be a reason why. I've got to be able to figure this out.
Yeah, exactly.
But as I always say, you'll pay for your education one way or another. Now, I'm not just talking about being able to read a chart and being able to see your setups properly. You'll also learn about yourself. You'll learn an incredible amount about yourself. And if you can't apply it properly, yes, it's going to just continually cost you. So there we go.
That's right. That's true. That's cool. So obviously you mentor a few people. So what do you see them go through? What do you see new traders go through when you mentor them? And what could you see that they could do differently just to improve themselves as a trader, even if it's only slight little things? Or what do you reckon it really comes down to when you mentor people? Where do you see them going wrong in their trading that they could really just improve if they just did a couple things?
Yeah, definitely. Look, great question. What I'll do is I'll break that up into two if I can.
Sure.
So the first question is, if I remember, if I heard that right, struggles.
Yeah, the struggles that new traders go through when you mentor them.
So the struggles I see new traders go through when I mentor them. Now, one of the key struggles is an insufficient education. So what's required is a sufficient. Now, sufficient, as I said before, doesn't mean you have to do what I did and you have to spend the money to do what I did.
Yeah.
But you need a sufficient understanding of price action and market structure. Okay. So that's one of the first struggles, because if you can't read the trend properly, if you can't gauge momentum, if you can't pick market structure properly, you're already behind the eight ball, you see, because the environment that you're operating in terms of your chart and where your setup is appearing may be faulty in some way. So already we've cut the potential of that trade down. So the biggest thing I think is a lack of education, or let me put that in a different way, a sufficient understanding of price action and market structure. Now, this just takes time, okay? But it's important, and it should be that it's quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. Now, another issue that I find for new traders, one of the struggles, is sticking to and mastering one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Okay? So we get one technique or one setup and it doesn't work. We are trying to say, be objective about our trend definition. That gets too hard. So then comes the overlaying the moving averages and all of these things. So what I find is that one of the problems is not mastering the basics. So the basics of trend, basics of momentum, projection, all of those sort of things, retracement, all of those basics. Now, when you can master the basics, the environment you're operating in, there's no, when I say uncertainty, you've objectively evaluated the trend, and then basically it comes down to then, waiting for your correct setup, waiting for your edge to appear, because you've mastered half of your analysis that you need to do. Some of the traders that I work with on a sort of a daily and a weekly basis, just by providing the direction of the trend makes an enormous amount, makes an enormous difference to their own strategy and their profitability. One of the other problems or struggles is jumping from one strategy to another.
Yes.
Or also known as, strategy jumping, style drift, all those sort of things, but not giving the strategy enough time to play out, not playing it out over a sufficient sample size to know whether this is profitable or not, and not just a big enough sample size, but a range of market conditions to prove whether this is profitable or not. So that's one big one. And of course, back testing sufficiently to gain confidence in your edge is one of the biggest struggles. Look,
definitely.
At the end of the day, back testing can seem laborious, but when you actually get into it and sit down and prove up your strategy, it becomes quite enjoyable and quite exciting at the same time, because you can see what's occurring. So now the second part of the question, what do I see that traders could do differently to improve themselves? So what they could do differently is the very first thing is pull back from trading live. Number one, don't jump in first. Don't do what should be the 9th or 10th step. Don't do that first. So begin to educate yourself. So focus on the education content, but be very selective. Okay. So then start with the basics. Start mastering the basics. Then, and when you do start to now apply what you know, realize that it's a journey. In other words, now pace yourself. Okay. So the average time for a trader to be successful, a swing trader, medium-term trader, as you would know, Joe, is 18 months to 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're not going to achieve it in 3 months.
No, that's right.
And after reading one book and going to one weekend seminar.
No, exactly.
Could you imagine going and learning, ABC of heart surgery on the weekend and applying it after 6 months?
You wouldn't trust your surgeon, would you?
Well, I wouldn't want to be his first patient. Realizing it's a journey. The average scalper, short-term trader, 3 to 5 years. Now we're talking the rough equivalent of full-time exertion. So that's a lot of time. But when you realize that, and you realize those statistics, it frames it properly in terms of where you're at in your journey.
Yeah.
Now, so number one, so this one is realize it's a journey, pace yourself, but also too, it's important to enjoy the journey, be able to look back. One of the other ones is now when you do start to think that you're ready, in other words, you've proven your strategy up in demo or sim, and the strategy is profitable. Now, start small. Start very small. Allow your psychology to start to kick in, start to bring to the surface issues so that you can now start to work with them. And then, of course, it comes to journaling. So how many people journal? How many people do a daily journal? How many people do a chart journal?
Not enough.
That's right. So the journal is the only way we can pull apart what's occurring. So that's a huge part of it. And then probably one of the key things that I say and that I find is effective is learn to forgive yourself. Okay?
Yes.
Because trading is tough. Trading is one of the hardest things that anyone, will ever do. So when we are tackling something that's difficult, realize that I'm going to make mistakes. So learn to forgive yourself, learn to forget, reset, and begin again.
Yeah, that's right.
There we go. So I hope I've answered those in a
roundabout. No, that was great. That was excellent. And I think that's it's funny because a lot of professional traders that I talk to, they all say the same things. It's journal your trades. Take screenshots of when you have a winning trade and losing trades. Have a playbook. All these sorts of things, and it kind of really gives you a big insight if you're not a profitable trader going, well, maybe this is what I need to do. This is what professional traders do. Why don't I just do what they do? And that's the whole idea of the podcast. So there's much insight. I mean, that was great.
Look,
So
there is a process, and there's processes that a trader must follow in terms of, well, there's a roadmap they need to follow to get where they need to be for stars, but there's certain processes that need to be done that a trader needs to do. If you're missing one of those processes, now journaling is a process, your education is part of the process. Journaling can be broken up into chart journal, statistical journal, daily journal, psych journal, all of those sort of things. If you're missing one piece of the puzzle, then that will find you out. So you have to know those pieces for starters, and then it comes down to basically applying them in order. So I give the analogy of and you would know this too, treating trading as a business. Well, imagine if you've got an employee who's a trader. You're going to give them a position description or a job description that they must follow. That covers all of the rules of engagement, so to speak. So
Hmm.
if one thing's missing in there, it's likely going to start to cost money. So,
That's right.
and I guess the thing that traders can also use, if they're treating it seriously like a business, is think to themselves, if that employee didn't do their job properly or missed certain parts, I think there'd be time for a serious review and maybe let that person go.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you're that person, maybe think of it in that way. So
Exactly. Yeah. And and I think that's what it comes down to. Even with myself, like my own trading, I think of myself, even though I own my trading account, I think of myself as the employee,
mhm.
as the employee. So employee, yeah, employee. Sorry. So because I got to sit there and I go, well, I've got a job to do, so I've got to think of this as I've got to create my income here. So it kind of keeps your head screwed on a little bit more, rather than just. I think where too many people go wrong is, like you said earlier, going live too quick, jump in. They think just buy or sell, make a lot of money. And
Sure.
I think that's where I see a lot of people go wrong, is they rush the process too much.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thanks for that. I suppose you did cover this a little bit before, but I guess how long did it take you to be consistently profitable to the point where you were like, okay, I'm actually making money now?
Look, it took around 3.5 to 4 years.
Yeah,
So I had to pull everything right back, unlearn some of the things that I thought I knew, and basically do an about face. So that meant going back to trading a size that was still reasonable to invoke, my psychology, so I could work with it, and also a size that was bringing, some income in, but not enough that was going to trigger me into a spiral.
yeah,
So that meant going back to reasonably small and then gradually building up from there.
yes,
So
yeah,
yeah, about 3.5 to 4 years.
yeah. And see, that's what I think a lot of people don't realize is they see the glory of you being a full-time trader now, but they don't see the 4 years, 3 to 4 years of struggle to get
So
there. They just see the after outcome. It's like a bodybuilder. People just go, like, oh man, he's so big, but they don't see the hours and hours and hours of training that they do. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, another question, like what kept you going? Like, how did you keep yourself motivated and going when you were consistently just losing money, when you weren't getting there?
Look, what I what I what I kept reminding myself of is that anything worthwhile is going to take time. Now, thankfully, I had the opportunity um, to stick it out as long as I could. I know a lot of people don't get that opportunity, and there's ways to
Yeah,
do it to make that smooth transition. So, I had the opportunity to do that, but also too, it couldn't go on forever. So what I sort of reminded myself is, if I want to really make it trading, I need to consider that there's no plan B.
hmm,
That was the big one. Now, if that meant hanging my old tie up on the wall, in a noose-like fashion or something like that, so be it. Something that reminded me. So basically, I didn't want to go back to the corporate world. I didn't want to do that unless I
yeah,
really had to. The other thing was, of course, I knew I could do it. I had great streaks of discipline and success. I had
yeah,
success before applying, simple strategies. These strategies weren't the problem. It was me being able to apply
yeah,
these with discipline and be able to hit the exit button and run for the exit door when I needed to. So I knew I could do it. I guess that's probably a big driver. And the last thing is, I absolutely enjoyed the challenge. I
yeah,
enjoyed challenges in life. So
yeah,
to me, it
exactly.
was something that wasn't going to beat me if it could. So I gave it everything.
Yeah, I think that was a good point you just said. I'm going to go back a bit where you said where it wasn't the strategy, and this is where I think a lot of people go wrong is they always think it's the strategy. They might take two losses in a row and they think it's a strategy that's broken, so they switch the whole trading strategy up, try to find a new one, when in reality they're doing themselves more damage because they've got to learn a whole new strategy. And then they take a loss, they switch it again, they've got to learn a whole new strategy again, when in reality if they stick to that one strategy, that next profitable trade might have just been around the corner.
That's
and
right.
and that's what I think everyone goes through it. Every new trader goes through it. I went through that. I was always chopping and changing strategies. And one day I was trend trading, the next day I was counter trend trading, the next day I was breakout trading. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I've got to just be consistent at one thing. So, and
Look
it
at
comes down to now is now I've got a counter trend style, and I've got a trend trading style, and I know the rules for both trading styles, and that's that. So,
Absolutely.
if you don't mind me asking, what is your trading style? Like counter trend trading, or a bit of both as well, like me?
Look, mainly trend trading.
Yeah.
It's the easier way to trade. And I use various overlays, one of those being Elliott Wave, some
Yeah.
of Gann's work, that sort of thing, just to provide, a bit more of a, just a bit more of a higher probability opportunity. So,
Yeah.
but definitely trend trading. I will trade counter trend, very short term. Some of
Yeah.
you probably know, and you would know some of my strategies, some of my climactic strategies, all of those.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I absolutely love. But once again, there's rules wrapped around all of those particular sorts of trades.
Yeah.
And some of those are very quick, some of those are very fast. I
Yeah.
trade those in the morning on the Australian stock market because, I'm making use of that flurry of momentum, but entirely different strategy. And you can't go out and sort of walk outside and go for a walk with the dog and come back in 10 minutes later. You've got to be right on the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
So look, typically trend trading is 75%.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong as well. Is it's where I see a lot of people actually pretty most of the people that I've teach and whatnot is they all go straight to counter trend trading because they're trying to catch that big drop or the big long position. They don't want to catch that little bit of chunk of meat in the middle. They want to catch the very top and the very bottom. When in reality, they can be very dangerous trying to pick the tops and bottoms because it's like Jesse Livermore says. It's the trend won't. I forgot the exact words, but he says the trend won't change within an instant, like a click of a finger. It will take time. So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong as well. So
Look, that's probably one of the most common trader mistakes is thinking that the trend can't keep going on. Well, absolutely it can. One of Dow's rules is, it comes back to Newton's, I think it's first law of momentum.
Yeah.
That
And it's
an object in motion tends to keep in motion. Same with the trend.
Yeah, and that's and I used to think that as a trend. When I first started learning how to trend trade, I was like, surely, I mean, this trend's been going all week. It has to reverse. It can't keep going and then go for another week. And I wouldn't trade because I was too scared. Because now it's going to reverse, and then it would go another week. And I'm like, it's got to reverse now. So I think it's just like trying to get that glorification of just picking the top and the bottom and catching that big move can be very dangerous. So, I mean, look, if you could go back in time, go back to the day you started and you could literally just tell yourself something, it was like you went back all those years, you're like, hey, Mark, it's me, Mark, from the 2019, do this. What would you tell yourself? Do something different in trading.
Yeah, great question. The very first thing would be don't quit full-time work until my trading profits match or better my current income.
Yeah.
Because that way I'm used to earning that income, you see, whereas, not used to earning 50% of it or 30% of it, whatever. So until my income matches my full-time exertion income, don't quit. Second one is seek out quality education. Forget everything else that's out there. Doesn't have to be formal education, but it needs to be quality education that is, that is grounded in solid principles. The third one is have a roadmap. Set yourself out a roadmap. Otherwise, we're just doing bits and pieces here and there, and we really haven't got a plan for us to be successful. Now, I give the analogy also of the doctor or the engineer. The doctor learns, so the medical degree, he learns the basics first, and he moves his way up and tackles harder and harder things as he gets through. Same with the trader. Unfortunately, there is no roadmap, so we have to figure it out ourselves, but try and think of it in the same sort of context, I guess, where start to, create the roadmap, work on little bits at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
The fourth one is, if you want to shortcut the journey, seek out a mentor.
Yeah, definitely.
When I started, I didn't have any mentors. I didn't know any. That was the trouble. So I had to go it alone. I had to figure it out myself. So, of course, I made, a lot of the mistakes. So look, that's put me in good stead though also. Number one, to avoid those, but secondly also to teach about it as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Another one is seriously filter out the noise. There is a huge amount of noise. I'm not talking chart noise or noise from price. Filter out the noise, filter out everything you subject yourself to trading related, because a lot of what's out there will not benefit you. Okay.
Yeah.
The last one is create the feedback loop. The feedback loop basically comes from trade, journal your trade, review your trade to see where you can improve, and start the process again.
Yeah, definitely.
Without that, we've just got no hope.
Yeah, that's it. That's great. Yeah, it's crazy. It's I always tell myself, if I could go back to when I first started, be like, hey Joe, I just tell myself these few things that could really improve myself as a trader, and it's only usually just a handful of simple little things that you need to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I see as well. A lot of new traders, it's just a handful of little things. Mine most would be be a little bit more patient in your trading. Wait for your setups. Sit on your hands. If you don't see any setups, if there's no setups all week, just go out. Wait for next week. There will be a setup. That kind of stuff. I think my biggest struggle when I first started was the patience and the money management. So, which are all in my trading plan now. So, yeah, cool. I mean, that pretty much brings us to the end of the interview. We've pretty much covered every topic, and I think you did very well in answering pretty much every question I had very thoroughly. So,
Terrific.
I do appreciate that. I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast with Mark Bennell. Yeah, and we hope to hear you guys in the next see you guys in the next podcast. So yeah, thank you, Mark, and we hope to hear from you soon as well.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for the opportunity, and good luck, everyone, in your trading journey.
Cool. Cheers, Mark. Talk soon.
Thanks, Joe. Bye.